Nobody saw this coming. Not even the people closest to the Harris family. What started as a rumor whispered in the corners of social media turned into a storm so powerful that it shook the entire foundation of T.I. and Tiny's world. And right at the center of that chaos was King Harris, their loud, outspoken, unpredictable son, who suddenly found his whole identity ripped apart by a single DNA test. It began quietly. A few blog pages started hinting at something major about the Harris family. People thought it was another scandal about King's behavior, or maybe something about T.I.'s past legal issues. But this time, the whispers were different. They mentioned Shekinah, Tiny's longtime friend, sometimes enemy, and words like secret, betrayal, and mother. At first, no one believed it. Shekinah was like family. Sure. She had been around for years, sharing screens with Tiny, laughing, crying, fighting, and forgiving. But to say she was King's real mother? It sounded insane. The internet brushed it off as gossip. But behind the scenes, things were unraveling fast. Tiny started getting anonymous messages, screenshots, old photos, cryptic comments from people she hadn't spoken to in years. They all said the same thing: you need to get a DNA test. Ask Shekinah. For a while, Tiny ignored it. She told herself people were just trying to stir up drama. But something about the timing bothered her. King had been distant lately, confused, angry. And there were moments, little flashes, where Tiny could feel something in him she couldn't quite explain. Like a wall between them that had slowly grown higher over the years. Then came the night everything changed. King had gotten into another argument online. Typical of him, but this time, instead of clapping back, he went live. His tone was different. His voice was shaky. And he said something that made everyone watching stop breathing for a moment. I don't even know who I am anymore. Everybody lying to me. My whole life's been fake. Within seconds, the internet exploded. Fans started digging, connecting dots, dragging old pictures of Shekinah and King side by side. And then, out of nowhere, a post appeared from a private account claiming to have proof that King's biological mother wasn't Tiny. T.I. was furious. He shut down all social media, called his lawyers, and tried to control the damage. But Tiny couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The only way to stop the whispers, she thought, was to face the truth head-on. So she did the one thing she never thought she'd have to do: she agreed to a DNA test. The day of the test was cold and heavy. Tiny sat in silence, her hands trembling as the nurse took samples. T.I. kept pacing, angry at the world. And Shekinah, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, sat in the corner, her eyes red. She wouldn't meet Tiny's gaze. It took days for the results to come back. Days that felt like years. When the call finally came, everyone was there: Tiny, T.I., Shekinah, and King. The air in the room felt sharp, like it could cut through skin. Tiny reached for T.I.'s hand, but he didn't move. The woman from the lab cleared her throat and read the results slowly, almost like she didn't want to be the one to say it. The test results confirm a biological relationship between Shekinah Anderson and King Harris with a probability of 99.99%. For a second, no one spoke. Tiny's world went silent. Her face drained of color. She blinked, waiting for someone to say it was a mistake. But no one did. Shekinah started to cry, not the loud, dramatic kind, but soft, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep inside her. T.I. just stared at the paper in disbelief. King stood frozen, his whole body tense, his jaw clenched. And then, in a voice that cracked under the weight of everything, he whispered, "So all this time, you all lied to me." Tiny broke down right there. The truth had come out, but it didn't set anyone free. It destroyed them. The story hit the internet within hours. Someone in the room had leaked it, nobody knows who, but once it got out, there was no going back. Blogs went wild. Twitter trended with hashtags like #KingHarrisDNA and #ShekinahExposed. People started digging into old interviews, moments where Shekinah seemed too protective of King, or where Tiny looked uncomfortable when their friendship came up. Every clip became evidence. Every smile looked suspicious. T.I. tried to protect his family's image, but how do you protect something that's already shattered? Reporters camped outside their home. Paparazzi followed Tiny to the grocery store, and fans kept flooding King's comments with questions he didn't have answers to. Meanwhile, Shekinah disappeared. She deleted her social media, refused interviews, and went completely silent. But silence only made people speculate more. Some claimed Tiny and T.I. paid her off years ago to keep things quiet. Others said King was the result of something that happened before Tiny and T.I. got married, a secret everyone thought they could bury. And then came the court hearing. Tiny, exhausted and humiliated, filed a motion to determine parental rights, not because she wanted to fight Shekinah, but because she needed to know where she stood legally. Was she still King's mother in the eyes of the law? Did she have any rights left to the child she raised from birth? That day in court was one of the darkest moments of her life. Cameras flashed outside, reporters shouted questions, and inside the courtroom, King sat between two women who both claimed to love him more than life itself. When the judge asked Tiny to speak, her voice shook. "Your Honor," she said softly, "I don't care what that paper says. I raised that boy. I stayed up all night when he was sick. I taught him to walk, to talk, to pray. I am his mother, maybe not by blood, but by every other way that matters." Across the room, Shekinah wiped tears from her eyes. She stood slowly, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she said. "I was young, scared. I made choices I regret. But he's still my son, and I can't pretend anymore." King sat there in silence, his face unreadable. Two mothers. One truth. No peace. T.I. was furious, not just at Shekinah, but at the situation itself. He felt betrayed, confused, and powerless. For years, he believed he was raising a family built on love and loyalty. But now, even that was in question. He couldn't look at Tiny the same. He couldn't look at Shekinah without anger boiling up inside. The judge didn't make an immediate ruling. Instead, he ordered a full investigation into the adoption records, hospital files, and everything surrounding King's birth. That meant more lawyers, more headlines, more public humiliation. After court, Tiny collapsed in the hallway. She was shaking, crying uncontrollably. T.I. tried to comfort her, but she pushed him away. She felt like everything she'd built, her marriage, her family, her sense of self, had fallen apart in front of the entire world. Meanwhile, King disappeared from social media completely. For weeks, no one knew where he was. Some said he went to stay with family in another state. Others claimed he was in therapy, trying to process the truth. What was certain was that he wasn't the same kid anymore. When he finally resurfaced months later, it was through a quiet Instagram post, just a picture of him sitting by a lake, with a caption that read, "Sometimes you gotta lose yourself to find out who you really are." Fans flooded the comments with support, love, and prayers. But behind the scenes, the Harris family was still in turmoil. T.I. had distanced himself from Shekinah completely. He and Tiny barely spoke unless it was about the kids. And then, one night, another video leaked, this time from someone close to the family. It showed Tiny sitting in her living room, watching an old home video of baby King taking his first steps. You could hear her voice in the background, laughing, cheering, saying, "That's my boy." At the end of the clip, she looked straight into the camera and whispered, "He'll always be mine." The internet went silent for a moment. Even those who had criticized her felt the weight of that sentence. Because it reminded everyone that motherhood isn't just about DNA, it's about love, sacrifice, and the bond you build through years of care. Eventually, the court ruled that Tiny would remain King's legal guardian, while Shekinah would be granted limited visitation rights. It wasn't a victory, it was a truce. A fragile, painful one. As time passed, the family started trying to rebuild. King slowly reconnected with both women, though the trust was gone. He still loved Tiny deeply, but the knowledge of what had been hidden from him created a scar that wouldn't fade easily. T.I., meanwhile, was left questioning everything, not just his family, but himself. How had he missed the signs? How had something so huge stayed buried for so long? The final blow came when Shekinah, months later, sat down for a private interview. Tears streamed down her face as she admitted the truth. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said softly. "I didn't have the means to raise him. Tiny and Tip gave him everything I couldn't. But I never stopped loving him. Not for a single day." It was heartbreaking and honest, and it left the internet divided. Some called Shekinah brave. Others called her selfish. But one thing was clear. The Harris family would never be the same again. The next time Tiny was spotted in public, she looked tired but calm. Reporters shouted questions, but she didn't say a word. She just smiled faintly and kept walking, clutching her phone like it held her whole world. Because maybe it did. Maybe, after everything, she realized that truth doesn't erase love. It just tests it. And even though that truth tore her family apart, it also forced them to face the one thing they'd all been avoiding for years: honesty. In the end, King's story became more than just another celebrity scandal. It became a mirror for anyone who's ever wondered who they really are, and a reminder that family isn't defined by blood, it's built through love, loyalty, and forgiveness. And as for Tiny, the woman who raised a son who wasn't hers by birth, but hers in every other way, she learned that even when the truth hurts, love can still survive it. Because some bonds are unbreakable, even when DNA says otherwise.